The fluorescent lights of the hospital cafeteria buzzed overhead like dying insects, casting a sickly yellow glow over everything they touched. I pressed my palm against the cold metal counter, steadying myself as the room tilted slightly. 12 hours. I'd been on my feet for 12 straight hours, and my shift wasn't even close to finished. The smell of industrial-strength disinfectant mixed with overcooked vegetables made my empty stomach turn. But I couldn't afford to eat, not when every dollar counted. I filled another cup of coffee, my fifth of the night, and watched the dark liquid swirl as someone jostled past me. Nobody looked at me. Nobody ever looked at me. I was part of the furniture here, just another exhausted nurse in pale blue scrubs, hair pulled back in a messy bun, eyes rimmed with shadows that no amount of concealer could hide anymore. "Excuse me." The voice cut through the ambient noise like a blade through silk, deep, quiet, and impossibly smooth. It didn't ask. It commanded. I turned, and the apology died on my lips. He stood less than 3 feet away, and the air itself seemed to bend around him, tall, well over 6 feet, with shoulders that filled out a black suit that probably cost more than my annual salary. The fabric caught the harsh cafeteria light with a subtle sheen that whispered of Italian tailoring and old money. His hair was dark, almost black, pushed back from a face that could have been carved from marble by someone who understood both beauty and cruelty. But it was his eyes that stopped my breath. Slate gray, cold and assessing, yet somehow burning with an intensity that made my skin prickle with awareness. Behind him, 2 men in similar dark suits stood at attention, their eyes constantly scanning the room. Not hospital security, something else. Something that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. "You're in my way," I said, and immediately regretted it. My mother had always told me my mouth would get me in trouble. One corner of his lips curved upward, not quite a smile, more like the acknowledgement of something amusing. "Am I?" His cologne reached me then, something expensive and woody with notes of leather and smoke. It cut through the cafeteria's institutional smell like it was erasing it from existence. I clutched my coffee cup tighter, suddenly aware of how I must look, exhausted, disheveled, invisible. "The coffee machine." I gestured weakly. "You're standing in front of it." He didn't move. Instead, his gaze traveled over me slowly, thoroughly, like he was cataloging every detail. It wasn't the leering look I'd grown used to from some of the older doctors or the entitled medical students. This was different. Clinical yet intimate, possessive yet detached, like he was determining whether I was worth his attention. "You work here," he said, not a question. "Nurse, 4th floor, night shift." I don't know why I answered. Something about his presence demanded truth, even from someone like me who'd learned to guard every word. He nodded once, a gesture that seemed to contain multitudes of meaning I couldn't decipher. Then he stepped aside with fluid grace, and I could finally breathe again. I moved toward the coffee machine on trembling legs, hyper-aware of him still standing there, still watching. "What's your name?" I should have lied. Should have given him anything but the truth. "Emma. Emma." He repeated it like he was tasting wine, determining its vintage. "Emma what?" "Just Emma." My hands shook as I reached for the coffee pot. "Look, I don't know who you are, but I need to get back to work. People need me." "People need you," he echoed, and something in his tone made it sound both like a revelation and a joke. How noble. Heat flushed my cheeks. Not everyone has the luxury of standing around hospital cafeterias in $1,000 suits. This time he did smile, and it transformed his face from merely handsome to devastating. But there was no warmth in it, just edges. "Perceptive. It's actually 3,000. Before I could respond, before I could process the casual arrogance of that statement, his phone buzzed. He pulled it out with one hand, glanced at the screen, and his entire demeanor shifted. The almost playful expression vanished, replaced by something cold and absolute. He said something in what sounded like Italian, rapid-fire and commanding, then slipped the phone back into his pocket. "I have to go." He looked at me again, and this time there was something different in his gaze. "A decision being made, but I'll be seeing you again, Emma." It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a promise. It was a statement of fact, delivered with the certainty of someone who'd never been denied anything in his life. Then he was gone, his security detail falling into step behind him, and the cafeteria suddenly felt colder and emptier than it had any right to be. I stood there for a full minute, coffee forgotten, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Nothing, I told myself. Nothing happened. Just a rich man passing through, probably visiting someone upstairs in the private wing where people paid extra for rooms that looked like hotel suites. But my hands were still shaking. The rest of my shift passed in a blur of medication rounds, vital checks, and the endless paperwork that seemed to multiply like bacteria. By the time I finally clocked out at 7 a.m., my feet were screaming and my back felt like someone had taken a hammer to my spine. I changed into my street clothes, worn jeans and a hoodie that had seen better days, and walked out into the pale morning light. The parking garage was mostly empty at this hour, my ancient Honda Civic sitting in its usual spot on the third level, where the monthly parking was cheapest. I fumbled with my keys, exhaustion making my fingers clumsy. Emma! I spun around so fast I dropped my keys. They clattered against the concrete with a sound that echoed off the garage walls. He was there, leaning against a black Mercedes S-Class with tinted windows so dark they looked like pools of oil. The morning light caught on his suit, different from last night, charcoal gray this time, and made his eyes look even more metallic. Behind him, the same two men stood at attention, and I noticed for the first time the subtle bulges under their jackets that suggested weapons. My heart hammered against my ribs. How did you know where you'd be? He pushed off the car with lazy grace. I asked. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. He moved toward me, and I backed up instinctively until my spine hit my car door. He stopped just close enough that I could smell his cologne again, could see the faint shadow of stubble along his jaw. You left something. He held out his hand. In it was my hospital ID badge, the one I must have dropped in the cafeteria. I reached for it, but he pulled it back slightly, forcing me to lean in. His fingers brushed mine as he finally released the badge, and the contact sent electricity racing up my arm. Thank you, I managed, hating how breathless I sounded. You're welcome, Emma Claire Hartley. He said my full name slowly, deliberately, and ice flooded my veins. My full name wasn't on my badge, just my first name and employee number. How do you know my name? I know a lot of things. He reached past me and I flinched, but he was only picking up my dropped keys from the ground. He held them up, examining my keychain, a cheap plastic thing from a gas station with a faded flower on it. I know you work 3 double shifts a week. I know you live alone in a 1-bedroom apartment in Riverside. I know you haven't seen your ex-boyfriend in 4 months, despite the restraining order you filed against him. The world tilted. You had me investigated. Due diligence. He said it like it was the most reasonable thing in the world, like having someone's entire life examined overnight was just another Tuesday for him. Why? The question came out as barely a whisper. He studied me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he leaned in, his lips close to my ear, his breath warm against my skin. Because you interested me, and when something interests me, I learn everything about it. I'm not a thing. No. He pulled back slightly, his eyes meeting mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. You're not. Which is why we're going to have breakfast. I'm going home. To sleep. No, you're not. He took my keys, pressed the unlock button, and opened my car door. But instead of letting me in, he gestured toward the Mercedes. You're going to have breakfast with me. Then I'm going to have one of my men drive your car to your apartment, and another will take you home after we're done talking. And if I refuse? Something flickered in his eyes, amusement maybe, or approval. You can refuse, but then you'll spend the rest of your day wondering who I am and what I want. You'll look over your shoulder every time you leave your apartment. You'll jump at shadows, or... He stepped closer, and my back pressed harder against the car. You can have breakfast with me, get your answers, and then decide what you want to do. My mind raced. This was insane. I didn't know this man. He'd clearly had me stalked, investigated. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to scream, to do anything but agree, but he was right. If I walked away now, I'd never stop wondering, never stop looking over my shoulder. And there was something else, something I didn't want to admit even to myself. A dark curiosity that wanted to know why someone like him had noticed someone like me. "One breakfast," I said, "then I go home." His smile was slow and dangerous. "Of course. Whatever you want, Emma." The way he said my name made it sound like a promise and a threat all at once. He guided me toward the Mercedes with a hand on the small of my back. Not pushing, just there, a touch that burned through my hoodie like a brand. One of his men opened the back door, and I slid into leather seats so soft they felt like butter. He followed, settling beside me with the confidence of someone who owned everything he touched. The door closed, sealing us in silence so complete my ears rang. The windows were so dark I could barely see outside, like we'd been sealed in our own private world. The driver pulled out smoothly, and I watched the parking garage disappear behind us. "Where are we going?" I asked, proud that my voice didn't shake. "Somewhere we can talk privately." That should have terrified me more than it did. Instead, I felt a strange calm settling over me, like I'd stepped off a cliff and was now just falling, with no idea where or when I'd land. He was looking at me again with that intense, cataloging gaze. "You're not afraid." "I'm terrified," I corrected. "But you came anyway." Curiosity killed the cat, and satisfaction brought it back. His hand moved and I tensed, but he was just adjusting his cufflink. A simple gesture that somehow seemed intimate in the enclosed space. "Tell me about him." "Who?" "Your ex, Marcus Webb." Hearing that name in his voice made my stomach clench. "There's nothing to tell. He hit you." It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. "Once, that's why I left. And then he followed you. Showed up at your work, your apartment. Threatened you. How do you—" I stopped. Of course he knew. He knew everything. "The restraining order is active. He can't come near me. Paper doesn't stop desperate men, Emma." He turned fully toward me, and in the dim light of the car, he looked almost predatory. "Has he contacted you recently?" "No. He's been quiet for months." I think he finally got the message. Something passed over his face, knowledge maybe, like he knew something I didn't. The car stopped smoothly, and I looked out to see we were parked in front of an elegant building I recognized from the newspapers, the Meridian, one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city, the kind of place that required reservations months in advance and had a dress code so strict they'd probably take one look at my hoodie and call security. "I can't go in there dressed like this," I said. "Yes, you can." He opened his door and extended his hand to me. "With me, you can go anywhere, and God help me." I believed him. The interior of the Meridian was exactly what I'd imagined from the glossy magazine spreads I'd flipped through during slow nights at the hospital, all cream marble, crystal chandeliers, and hushed conversations that spoke of money so old it had forgotten its own origins. A tuxedoed maitre d' materialized the moment we entered, his expression shifting from professional courtesy to something approaching reverence when he saw my companion. "Mr. Salvatore," he said, bowing slightly. "Your table is ready." Salvatore. The name echoed in my head as we were led through the restaurant, past tables where women in designer dresses and men in custom suits paused their conversations to watch us pass. Not me. They were watching him. And the way they looked wasn't just curiosity. It was fear wrapped in respect. The kind of reaction you'd have to a beautiful predator walking through your living room. I was acutely aware of my worn jeans, my hoodie, my hair that probably looked like a bird's nest after my 12-hour shift. But his hand remained on the small of my back, steady and possessive, and somehow that touch made me feel like I belonged there. We were shown to a private room at the back, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A single table set with china so delicate it looked like it would shatter if you breathed on it too hard. The door closed behind us with a soft click, and suddenly we were alone. "Sit," he said, pulling out a chair. I sat, watching as he moved around to the opposite side with that same fluid grace. He removed his suit jacket, draping it over his chair, and I caught a glimpse of a shoulder holster before he sat down. A gun. He was carrying a gun. "You're staring," he observed, amusement coloring his tone. "You're armed. Always." He said it like it was the most natural thing in the world. Would you like coffee? Something stronger? Coffee. Black. He pressed a button on the table, and within seconds, a server appeared. Different from the maitre d', younger, but with the same careful deference. Salvatore ordered in rapid Italian, and the server nodded, disappeared. You speak Italian, I said, because I needed to say something. Anything to fill the silence that pressed against my skin like humidity before a storm. My father was from Sicily. I grew up speaking both languages. He leaned back in his chair, studying me with that unnerving intensity. You're trying to figure out who I am. I know who you are. The words came out before I could stop them. Dante Salvatore. I've seen your name in the papers. Real estate development, import-export, charitable foundations. I paused, watching his expression, which revealed nothing. Very generous donations to local hospitals, including yours, including mine. The coffee arrived, along with plates of food I hadn't ordered, pastries, fruit, eggs prepared in ways I couldn't identify. The server vanished again. That's how you got my information. You probably sit on the board. I do. He poured my coffee himself, a strangely intimate gesture from a man who probably had people to do everything for him. But that's not why I had you investigated. Then why? Because when I saw you last night in that cafeteria, looking like you were about to collapse, pouring coffee with hands that shook from exhaustion, something in me recognized something in you. He pushed the cup toward me. You looked like someone barely holding on. Like someone who'd been invisible for so long she'd forgotten she existed. His words cut deeper than they should have. I wrapped my hands around the warm cup, needing the heat to ground me. That's very poetic, but it doesn't explain why a man like you would give a damn about a nurse you've never met. Eat. It wasn't a suggestion. When did you last have a real meal? I thought about lying, but those gray eyes seemed to see through everything. 2 days ago. Maybe 3. Something dangerous flashed across his face. You're starving yourself. I'm budgeting. There's a difference. I picked up a pastry to appease him, took a bite. It melted on my tongue, butter and sugar and something I couldn't identify but tasted like heaven. Medical school debt, rent, car payment, restraining orders aren't cheap either. How much? Excuse me? How much do you owe? He said it casually, like he was asking about the weather. That's none of your business. Humor me. I shouldn't have answered. But the exhaustion, the surreal nature of sitting in a private dining room with a man who seemed to command reality itself, made me reckless. $83,000 in student loans. First and last month's rent on my apartment, which I'm already behind on. Car's about to be repossessed, and I just found out my insurance won't cover the dental work I need. I laughed, but it came out bitter. So, to answer your question, I owe everyone everything and I have nothing left to give. He didn't respond immediately, just watched me eat, his expression unreadable. When I'd finished the pastry and started on the eggs, which were somehow perfectly prepared despite me never ordering them, he finally spoke. Your ex-boyfriend, Marcus Webb. He works for someone. My fork clattered against the plate. What? He's a courier. Low level, but connected to an organization I've been monitoring. Dante leaned forward, his elbows on the table, his full attention focused on me like a spotlight. 3 months ago, he stole something from them. Something valuable. They want it back. The room felt suddenly cold. What does this have to do with me? They think you have it. Or they think you know where it is. That's insane. I haven't seen Marcus since the memory hit me like a fist. The last time I'd seen Marcus, 4 months ago, when he'd showed up at my apartment door at 2 a.m, wild-eyed and desperate. He'd shoved a package into my hands, told me to keep it safe, that he'd be back for it. I'd been so focused on getting him out, on the neighbors who'd started peeking through their doors, that I'd just thrown the package in my closet and called the police. You do have it, Dante said quietly, watching the realization dawn on my face. I don't know what it is. It's just a package. I never opened it. Where is it now? In my apartment, in my closet. I forgot about it after the restraining order went through. My hands were shaking again. What's in it? Information, names, accounts, routes. He said it like he was discussing a grocery list. worth approximately $5 million to the right buyers. Or the wrong ones. The number didn't even compute. I need to go to the police. No. The word cracked like a whip. The organization Marcus stole from has people inside the police department. You go to them, and you'll disappear before the paperwork is filed. Then what am I supposed to do? Panic was rising in my chest, making it hard to breathe. Dante stood, moved around the table with predatory grace. He crouched beside my chair, bringing himself to eye level, and his hand came up to cup my face. The touch was gentle, almost tender, but his eyes were hard as diamonds. You're going to let me protect you. I should have pulled away. Should have run screaming from the room. But his hand was warm against my skin, and for the first time in months, maybe years, I didn't feel invisible. Why would you do that? You don't know me. I know enough. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone and I shivered. And I told you. Something in me recognized something in you. You've been running on empty for so long, Emma. Let me help you. What do you want in return? His smile was slow, dangerous, beautiful. I haven't decided yet. That should have terrified me. Instead, heat pooled low in my stomach, a dangerous awareness of how close he was, how his cologne wrapped around me like smoke, how his eyes had darkened to the color of storm clouds. I need to think, I whispered. No. He stood, pulling me up with him. You need to trust me, because in about 3 hours, Marcus is going to realize you have what he's looking for. And when he does, he won't come alone. How do you know that? Because I've been tracking him since he stole the package. I know he's been watching your apartment. I know he's been working up the courage to approach you. Dante's hands moved to my shoulders, his grip firm but not painful. And I know that tonight, he's planning to break in and take back what he thinks is his. The world tilted. You've been watching me. I've been watching him. You were just in the frame. He released me, stepped back, but his eyes never left mine. Now you have a choice. You can go home, wait for him to show up, hope the restraining order and a locked door will be enough to stop a desperate man. Or you can come with me. Come with you where? Somewhere safe. Somewhere he can't reach you. He picked up his jacket, shrugged it on with movements that looked almost choreographed. Somewhere you can finally stop running. I thought about my apartment, the peeling paint, the lock that stuck, the neighbors who minded their own business even when they shouldn't. I thought about Marcus's hands around my throat that last night, the wild look in his eyes, the way he'd said "you're mine" like it was a benediction and a curse. And I thought about this man in front of me, this beautiful, dangerous stranger who'd had me investigated, who carried a gun, who spoke about $5 million stolen goods like it was nothing unusual. If I go with you, I said slowly, I want answers. Real ones. Who you really are. What you really do. All of it. Deal. He extended his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, I took it. His fingers closed around mine, strong, warm, possessive. But I warn you, Emma, once you know the truth, there's no going back. You can't unknow what I'll tell you. I'm already in this, I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. Marcus made sure of that when he dumped his problems on my doorstep. Dante's smile was approval, and something darker. Good. I was hoping you'd say that. He led me out of the private room, through the restaurant where people still stared, and back to the waiting Mercedes. His security detail fell into formation around us without a word being spoken. One in front, one behind, moving like they'd done this 1,000 times before. As I slid into the car, I caught sight of my reflection in the tinted window. Pale, exhausted, wearing clothes that probably cost less than the leather seats I was sitting on. I looked like prey being led into a predator's den. Maybe I was. The car pulled away from the Meridian, and I watched the city slide past through darkened windows. Dante sat beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body, far enough that I couldn't quite touch him without deliberately closing the distance. Where are we going? I asked. My home. He pulled out his phone, typed something rapidly. It's secure. Private. No one gets in or out without my permission. That sounds like a prison. That depends on your perspective. He glanced at me, and something in his expression made my breath catch. To some it might feel like a cage. To others, it's the safest place in the city. And which one is it for me? His smile was all edges. That's entirely up to you, Emma. The car wound through streets I recognized, then streets I didn't, finally turning onto a private drive that led up a hill I'd only ever seen from a distance. At the top sat a house. No, an estate that looked like it had been transplanted from a European countryside. Stone and glass and grounds that stretched as far as I could see, surrounded by walls that probably had security systems worth more than my entire life. The gates opened as we approached, closing behind us with a finality that made my chest tight. "Last chance," Dante said softly. "Say the word, and I'll have you driven home. No questions asked." I looked at the estate, then back at him. At the sharp angles of his face, the controlled power in his posture, the promise of safety and danger all wrapped up in expensive fabric and Italian leather. "Show me inside," I said. His hand found mine in the darkness of the car, his fingers threading through mine with a possessiveness that should have scared me. Instead, I felt something else entirely, something like coming home. The interior of Dante's estate made the meridian look modest. Marble floors stretched in every direction, reflecting the light from chandeliers that looked like they belonged in a palace. Original artwork lined the walls, pieces I recognized from my rare visits to museums, the kind that had plaques explaining their historical significance. Everything was pristine, elegant, and completely untouchable, just like the man who owned it. "This way," Dante said, his hand still wrapped around mine as he led me through a foyer that could have swallowed my entire apartment. Our footsteps echoed off the high ceilings, and I caught glimpses of rooms branching off. A library with floor-to-ceiling books, a dining room with a table that could seat 20, a sitting room with furniture that probably cost more than a car. We climbed a curved staircase, and I noticed for the first time how many security cameras were positioned at strategic points. How many men in dark suits seemed to materialize from nowhere, nodding to Dante before disappearing again. This wasn't just a home, it was a fortress. He stopped in front of a door on the second floor, pushed it open, and gestured for me to enter. The bedroom was larger than my entire apartment. A king-sized bed dominated the space, dressed in what looked like silk sheets and deep charcoal. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the grounds, and I could see the city sprawling in the distance, glittering in the morning sun. There was a sitting area, with a couch and chairs, a desk, and 2 doors that probably led to a bathroom and closet. "This is your room," Dante said, releasing my hand finally. The absence of his touch felt like a loss. "Bathroom through that door, closet through the other. I'll have clothes brought up in your size." "How do you know my size?" He gave me a look that said I should know better than to ask. Of course, he knew. He knew everything. "The house is secure," he continued, moving to the windows. "But don't try to leave without me. The guards have orders to keep you here for your own protection." "So I am a prisoner." He turned, and the look in his eyes made heat coil in my stomach. "You're under my protection. There's a difference." "Is there?" He crossed the room in 3 strides, and suddenly he was close. Too close. I could see the faint scar above his left eyebrow, the way his pupils had dilated slightly, the pulse point at his throat. His hand came up to cup my jaw, tilting my face up to his. "A prisoner wouldn't have a choice," he said softly. "You can walk out that door right now. I'll drive you home myself. But we both know what happens if you do. Marcus. The package. Men who made people disappear." "Why are you doing this?" I whispered. "Really?" His thumb traced my lower lip, and I couldn't stop the shiver that ran through me. "Because I'm a selfish man, Emma, and I don't share what's mine. I'm not yours. Not yet." The words were a promise and a threat. Then he stepped back, and I could breathe again. "Get some rest. You look like you're about to collapse. When you wake up, we'll talk." He was at the door before I found my voice. "Dante." He paused, looked back. "Thank you," I said, hating how small my voice sounded, "for not letting me go home." Something shifted in his expression. Softened, maybe, though it was hard to tell. "Sleep, Emma. You're safe here." The door closed behind him with a soft click, and I heard the unmistakable sound of a lock engaging. From the outside, So much for not being a prisoner, but exhaustion was pulling at me like a riptide, and the bed looked like heaven. I kicked off my shoes, peeled off my hoodie, and collapsed onto sheets that felt like clouds. The last thing I thought before darkness claimed me was that I should be more afraid than I was. Instead, I felt safer than I had in years. I woke to darkness and panic, bolting upright with a scream caught in my throat. For a moment, I didn't know where I was. The room was too big, too dark, too quiet. Then memory crashed back. Dante. The estate. The package Marcus had left. Marcus. I fumbled for my phone, checked the time. 8 p.m. I'd slept for almost 12 hours. 12 hours while Marcus could have been at my apartment, could have broken in, could have realized the package was gone. The door opened, spilling light into the room. Dante stood silhouetted in the doorway, still wearing his suit pants but minus the jacket and tie. His shirt was unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms that were corded with muscle and marked with scars. "You're awake," he said, stepping inside. "I heard you moving." "My apartment," I said, pushing off the bed. "Marcus is currently sitting in a holding cell downtown." Dante moved to the windows, pressed a button that made the curtains slide open silently. The grounds were lit up like a stage. Security lights positioned every few feet. "He broke into your apartment at 4 this afternoon. My men were waiting." Relief and horror warred in my chest. "You set him up. I protected you." He turned to face me, and in the low light, he looked almost inhuman, beautiful and terrible. "He had a gun, Emma, and 2 friends with him. If you'd been there." He didn't finish. He didn't have to. "What happens to him now?" "That depends on what he tells the people questioning him." Dante's expression was carved from ice. "If he's smart, he'll give up his employers. If he's not, he'll disappear." "You can't just make people disappear." His smile was all teeth. "Can't I?" I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly very aware that I was standing in a strange man's house, wearing only my jeans and tank top, while he talked about making people disappear like it was discussing the weather. "Who are you?" I asked. "Really?" "You wanted the truth." He moved toward me, and I stood my ground even though everything in me screamed to back away. The real estate development, the import-export business, the charitable foundations, those are all real. But they're also covers for my actual work. Which is, I run the largest organized crime syndicate on the East Coast. He said it simply, without pride or shame, just fact. Gambling, protection, strategic acquisitions, nothing that touches drugs or trafficking. I have lines I don't cross, but everything else, that's mine. The room felt too small suddenly. "You're in the Mafia." "I am the Mafia. In this city, at least." He was close now, close enough that I could smell his cologne again, that intoxicating mix of leather and smoke that made my head spin. "The organization Marcus stole from? They answer to me. He didn't just steal from them, he stole from me. Then why haven't you—" I couldn't finish. "Killed him?" Dante's hand came up, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. "Because he led me to you, and you, Emma Hartley, are worth more than $5 million in stolen information." My heart hammered against my ribs. "I don't understand." "You will." His fingers trailed down my neck, along my collarbone, leaving fire in their wake. "Your ex-boyfriend stole from me, put you in danger, made you a target. Do you know what I do to people who threaten what's mine?" "I'm not yours," I breathed. But even I didn't believe it anymore. "Aren't you?" His other hand settled on my waist, pulling me closer. "You came with me this morning. You slept in my house. You're standing here in my room, wearing my protection like armor, and you haven't run yet. Maybe I'm just stupid." "No." His thumb pressed against my pulse point, and I knew he could feel how fast my heart was racing. "You're smart enough to know that I'm the safest place for you right now. Smart enough to recognize that I can give you everything you've been missing." "Like what?" The question came out breathless. "Safety. Security. The ability to sleep without wondering if you can make rent. The knowledge that no one will ever hurt you again, because they'll have to go through me first." His forehead dropped to mine, and I could feel his breath against my lips. I can make all your problems disappear, Emma. I can make you disappear if that's what you want. New name, new city, new life. What do you want in return? You. Simple. Direct. Terrifying. I want you to stay. Here. With me. As what? Your prisoner? You're my woman. He pulled back just enough to look into my eyes. Under my protection. In my home. In my bed. The last word sent electricity racing down my spine. That's insane. I don't even know you. You know enough. You know I'm dangerous. You know I'm powerful. You know I can protect you from anything and anyone. His grip tightened on my waist, and you know you feel it too. This thing between us. This recognition. I did. God help me. From the moment I'd seen him in that cafeteria, something had clicked into place, like a key finding its lock, like coming home after years of wandering. I need time, I whispered. No. His mouth was at my ear, his voice a dark purr that made my knees weak. You need to decide. Right now. Because Marcus's employers know he failed. They know the package is gone, and they're going to assume you have it, but you have it. They don't know that. And by the time they figure it out, you'll either be under my protection or you'll be dead. The bluntness of it shocked me. You can't know that. I can. I do. He pulled back, and his eyes were hard. This is the world I live in, Emma. The world you're already part of, whether you like it or not. Marcus made that choice for you when he showed up at your door. Now you get to make a choice too. Do you trust me to keep you safe? Did I? This man who'd had me investigated, who'd admitted to running a criminal empire, who just told me he could make people disappear? Every rational part of my brain screamed no, but there was another part, a deeper, more primitive part, that recognized the truth in his words, that knew he was dangerous but also knew he was dangerous for me, not to me. That understood on some instinctive level that this man would burn the world down before he let anyone hurt me. If I say yes, I started, and his eyes flashed with victory. What does that mean? Exactly. It means you move in here, officially. You quit your job at the hospital. I'll pay off your debts, cover your expenses. You want to keep working? I'll arrange something at one of the medical facilities I own, but you don't go anywhere without security. You don't make decisions about your safety without consulting me, and you let me take care of you the way you should have been taken care of all along. That sounds like control. It is control. He didn't even try to deny it. I'm not going to lie to you and pretend I'm not a possessive man. What's mine stays mine. But in return, you get everything I have. My protection. My resources. My loyalty. Your loyalty. I laughed, but it sounded hollow. What does that even mean in your world? It means I don't share. It means anyone who looks at you wrong answers to me. It means you become the most protected person in this city because you're mine. And I protect what's mine with everything I have. The intensity in his voice, in his eyes, should have terrified me. Instead, I felt something else. Something warm and dark and dangerous spreading through my chest. And if I say no, his jaw tightened. Then I put you in a safe house with guards, and we pretend this thing between us doesn't exist. You stay alive, but you stay alone. Is that what you want? No. The answer came immediately, instinctively. I didn't want to be alone anymore. Didn't want to struggle for every dollar, every meal, every moment of peace. Didn't want to jump at shadows or wonder if my ex-boyfriend would show up drunk and violent again. But more than that. More than the practical reasons, I wanted to know what it felt like to be claimed by a man like Dante Salvatore. To be protected, possessed, consumed by someone who looked at me like I was the most valuable thing in his world. I need one thing, I said. Name it, honesty. No more secrets. If I'm going to be part of your world, I need to know what that means. All of it. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Deal. But the same goes for you. No secrets. No lies. You're honest with me about what you want, what you need, what you're feeling, even if what I'm feeling is terrified. His smile was softer this time, especially then. He held out his hand, and I stared at it. This was the moment, the choice. Take his hand, and my life changed forever. Walk away, and I'd always wonder what if. I took his hand. His fingers closed around mine with that same possessive grip from the car, and he pulled me flush against him. One hand tangled in my hair, tilting my head back, and his mouth descended on mine. The kiss was nothing like I'd expected. It wasn't gentle or tentative. It was claiming, fierce and demanding and absolutely thorough. He kissed me like he was marking territory, like he was branding me from the inside out, and I melted into it with a desperation that should have embarrassed me. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. Mine. He said against my lips, "Say it." "Yours," I whispered, and the word felt like surrender and victory all at once. His smile was pure predator. "Good girl." The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of adjustments that felt like stepping into someone else's life. Dante kept his word about everything. My debts disappeared overnight. My apartment was cleared out by professionals who packed my meager belongings with more care than they deserved, and I found myself living in a wing of his estate that was larger than most houses. But it was the other changes that left me reeling. I couldn't leave the grounds without an escort, usually 2 men in dark suits who stayed close enough to protect, but far enough to give the illusion of privacy. My phone was replaced with one Dante assured me was secure, which I quickly learned meant he could track my every movement. And despite his promise to let me continue nursing, he'd convinced me to take a temporary leave until things settled, things being the ongoing investigation into Marcus and his associates. "You're distracted," Dante said one evening as we sat in his study. He was reviewing documents at his desk, while I curled up on the leather couch with a book I wasn't really reading. Outside, rain pelted the windows, turning the world into a watercolor blur. "I'm fine," I lied. He set down his pen, those gray eyes pinning me in place. "You're not fine. You've barely eaten today. You've been staring at the same page for 20 minutes, and you keep looking at your phone like you're expecting bad news." I hated how well he could read me. "I'm just adjusting." "To what, specifically?" He stood, moved around the desk with that predatory grace that still made my breath catch. "To being safe? To not working yourself to death? To having someone who actually gives a damn whether you eat? To being owned?" I snapped, then immediately regretted it. But Dante didn't look angry. He looked almost pleased as he sat beside me on the couch, close enough that his thigh pressed against mine. "Is that what you think this is?" "Isn't it? I can't go anywhere alone. Can't make my own decisions. Can't even order takeout without one of your men clearing the restaurant first." I gestured around the study. "This is a beautiful cage, Dante, but it's still a cage." His hand cupped my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. "Would you rather be in your old apartment, wondering when Marcus's employers will come for you, working yourself into an early grave for a system that sees you as disposable? At least I'd be free. You'd be dead within a week." The words were harsh, but his touch remained gentle. "You think I'm being paranoid? 2 days ago, 3 men tried to breach the outer wall. They had photos of you, Emma. Photos from before you came here. They were coming for you. Ice flooded my veins. You didn't tell me, because I handled it." His thumb traced my cheekbone. "That's my job, to handle the threat so you don't have to. By keeping me in the dark, by keeping you safe." He leaned closer, his forehead against mine. "You want freedom? I'll give you all the freedom in the world once this is over. But right now, your freedom gets you killed, and that's not something I'm willing to risk." The intensity in his voice, the raw possessiveness, should have made me angry. Instead, I felt that traitorous heat coiling low in my stomach again. The same heat I'd felt every time he touched me, looked at me, spoke to me like I was the center of his universe. "I feel useless," I admitted quietly. "I'm used to working, to being needed. Here, I'm just waiting." "You are needed." His hand slid down to my waist, pulling me onto his lap in one smooth motion. I gasped, suddenly straddling him. My hands braced on his shoulders. "You're needed by me. Every second of every day." "For what?" My voice came out breathier than I intended. "I don't do anything. I don't contribute anything. You're here." His hand splayed across my back, holding me against him. "You let me see you, touch you, know that you're safe." One hand moved up, tangling in my hair. "Do you have any idea what that does to me?" Knowing you're under my roof, knowing every breath you take is because I'm keeping you alive? That's not healthy. I never claimed to be healthy, Tesoro. The Italian endearment rolled off his tongue like honey. I claim to be honest, and honestly, you've become an obsession. My heart hammered against my ribs. Dante, I think about you constantly, he continued, his voice dropping to that dark purr that made my insides melt. When I'm in meetings, when I'm handling business, when I'm lying in bed knowing you're just down the hall, wearing those little pajamas that drive me insane. Heat flooded my face. You've been watching me? The cameras are for security. His smile was unrepentant. But yes, I watch you read. Watch you pace when you can't sleep. Watch you curl up in that chair by your window and stare at the city like you're missing your old life. I am missing it, I admitted. Or parts of it. The purpose, the feeling of making a difference, then make a difference here. He shifted beneath me, and I felt the evidence of his arousal pressing against me. I own 3 hospitals, Emma, 4 medical clinics. Be my liaison. Help me understand what they need, where the money should go. Turn my charitable foundations into something real instead of just tax write-offs. I blinked. You want me to work for you? With me. Use your experience, your knowledge. Make those facilities better. His hands tightened on my waist. But you do it from here, from safety, with guards who make sure no one gets close enough to hurt you. It was a compromise. Not freedom, but not uselessness either. What if I want more? Like what? Like going back to bedside nursing eventually. Like having a life outside these walls. His expression hardened. Eventually. When it's safe. When Marcus's employers are handled, and you're not a target anymore. How long will that take? As long as it takes. He pulled me closer, his mouth at my ear. I told you I was a possessive man, Emma. That means I don't let go. That means your safety comes before your comfort, before your wants, before everything except your life itself. That's not fair. Life isn't fair. His teeth grazed my earlobe and I shuddered. But I'm offering you something better than fair. I'm offering you everything I have, everything I am, in exchange for letting me keep you safe, safe and trapped, safe and cherished. He pulled back, his eyes burning into mine. Do you think I keep things I don't value? Do you think I'd go to these lengths for someone who didn't matter? I think you're used to controlling everything around you, I said. But my voice lacked conviction. I think you saw something you wanted and took it. I did. He didn't even try to deny it, but that doesn't make it less real. I wanted you from the moment I saw you in that cafeteria. I want you now, and I'll want you tomorrow and every day after. His honesty was devastating. I don't know what to do with that. You don't have to do anything. His hand cupped my face again, thumb tracing my lips. Just stay. Let me protect you. Let me take care of you. And when you're ready, when you feel safe enough, let me have you completely. The implication was clear, and heat pooled between my thighs. We'd kissed, several times, each one more intense than the last. But he hadn't pushed for more, hadn't tried to claim anything beyond those soul-searing kisses and the possessive touches that left me aching. Why haven't you? The question escaped before I could stop it. Haven't I what? Pushed for more. You said you wanted me. You clearly... I shifted slightly against the hard length pressing against me. You want me physically. So why haven't you tried? His smile was dark and promising. Because when I have you, and I will have you, Emma, it won't be because you feel like you owe me. It won't be because you're grateful or scared or confused. It will be because you want me just as desperately as I want you. How do you know I don't already? The words hung in the air between us, loaded with implications I couldn't take back. His eyes darkened, and his grip on me tightened to the point of pain. Don't say things you don't mean, he warned. I mean it. And I did. Somewhere between the fear and the frustration and the bizarre safety of being owned by a man who terrified and fascinated me in equal measure, I'd started wanting him, craving his touch, lying awake at night, imagining what it would feel like to be claimed by him completely. Emma. My name was a growl. If we do this, there's no going back. I told you I don't share. That includes your body, your pleasure, your everything. I know. I'll be your first since him, your last ever. You understand that? The possessiveness should have scared me. Instead, it sent a thrill through my entire body. Yes. He stood in one fluid motion, taking me with him. My legs wrapped around his waist instinctively as he carried me across the study to his desk. He set me down on the edge, stepping between my thighs, and his mouth crashed into mine with bruising intensity. This kiss was different from the others. This was claiming, conquering, a declaration of ownership that left no room for doubt. His hands were everywhere, tangling in my hair, gripping my hips, sliding under my shirt to find bare skin. I gasped into his mouth, and he swallowed the sound, his tongue delving deep. Mine, he growled against my lips. Say it again. Yours, I breathed, and his control snapped. He pulled my shirt over my head in one swift motion, then stopped. Just stopped and stared at me sitting on his desk in my jeans and simple cotton bra. His eyes traveled over me like he was memorizing every detail, every curve, every imperfection. Bellissima, he murmured. So fucking beautiful. No one had ever looked at me like that. Like I was art. Like I was something precious and profane all at once. His hands moved to my jeans, and I lifted my hips to help him slide them down. Then I was sitting on his desk in just my underwear, and he was still fully clothed, and somehow that made it even more intense. The control he had, the way he looked at me like a predator deciding where to bite first. I need you to understand something, he said, his voice rough. Once we do this, you're mine in every way that matters, not just legally, not just physically. Mine. I understand. Do you? He leaned over me, caging me in with his arms. Because I'm not a gentleman, Emma. I won't be soft with you. I'll be careful. I'll make sure you enjoy every second. But I won't be soft. I don't want soft, I admitted. I want real. His smile was almost feral. Then that's what you'll get. He kissed me again, and this time there was no holding back. His hands explored every inch of exposed skin, while his mouth claimed mine with a thoroughness that left me dizzy. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. Not here, he said roughly. Not on my fucking desk like you're some quick fuck. You deserve better than that. He scooped me up again, and I wrapped myself around him as he carried me out of the study, down the hall, up the stairs. His security team melted into the shadows as we passed, seeing nothing, saying nothing. We reached his bedroom, a room I'd never been in before, and he kicked the door closed behind us. The room was massive, dominated by a bed that could easily fit 4 people. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the rain-soaked grounds, lightning occasionally illuminating the darkness. He laid me on the bed with surprising gentleness, then stepped back. Last chance, he said. Tell me to stop, and I will. No judgment, no consequences. I met his eyes. Don't stop. He smiled, a real smile this time, warm and possessive and absolutely devastating. Then he started removing his clothes, and I forgot how to breathe. His body was a roadmap of violence, scars crisscrossing his chest and abdomen, evidence of a life lived dangerously. But beneath the scars was pure muscle, power contained in human form. He was beautiful in the way predators were beautiful, dangerous and perfect and completely lethal. He climbed onto the bed, covering my body with his, and the feel of skin against skin made me gasp. He was warm and solid and everywhere, his weight pressing me into the mattress in a way that felt like safety and captivity all at once. Mine, he whispered against my throat, and then he proceeded to prove it in the most thorough, devastating way possible. Later, hours later, I lay in his bed with my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat slow to normal. His hand traced lazy patterns on my back, and I felt boneless, satisfied, marked in ways I'd never imagined. No regrets? He asked quietly. None, and I meant it. Whatever this was, obsession, possession, love, it was real. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged somewhere, like I belonged to someone. Good, he murmured, pressing a kiss to my hair. Because you're not going anywhere, ever. It should have sounded like a threat. Instead, it sounded like a promise. 2 months after that night, I stood in Dante's study reviewing architectural plans for the new pediatric wing at St. Catherine's hospital, one of the facilities he owned. The rain had finally stopped, leaving the city washed clean and glittering in the late afternoon sun. I'd just finished a conference call with the hospital board, using my nursing experience to push for changes that would actually benefit patients instead of just looking good on paper. This was my life now. Strange, surreal, but undeniably mine. "You're smiling," Dante said from the doorway, and I looked up to find him watching me with that intense gaze that still made my pulse quicken. "The board approved the neonatal ICU upgrades," I said, unable to keep the excitement from my voice. "All of them. The equipment, the additional staff, even the family rooms I suggested." He crossed to me, pulling me into his arms. "Of course they did. You're very persuasive. Or they're scared of you. That too." His smile was unrepentant. He pressed a kiss to my temple, and I leaned into him, breathing in his familiar scent. "I have news." Something in his tone made me pull back to look at him. "What kind of news?" "The kind you've been waiting for." He led me to the couch, sitting and pulling me down beside him. "Marcus's employers have been handled. All of them. The organization has been dismantled." My heart jumped. "What does that mean? Dismantled how?" "It means they no longer pose a threat to you or anyone else." His expression was carefully neutral. "The details aren't important. Dante. Emma." He cupped my face, his gray eyes serious. "You told me you wanted honesty, so I'll be honest. Some of them are dead. Some are in prison. The rest have fled the city and won't be coming back. The point is, you're safe now. Truly safe." I should have felt horror, should have been appalled at how casually he discussed death and imprisonment. But all I felt was relief, overwhelming, knee-weakening relief. "And Marcus?" I asked quietly. "He's alive. He made a deal with the federal prosecutors, testified against his associates in exchange for witness protection." Dante's jaw tightened. "He'll spend the rest of his life looking over his shoulder. But he'll be breathing, which is more than he deserved after what he did to you." I thought about Marcus, the man I'd once believed I loved, who'd hit me and used me and put my life in danger without a second thought. "I don't want to know where he is. You won't." Dante's thumb traced my cheekbone. "He's gone. Out of your life forever. Which brings me to my next point." "What point?" "You're safe now, Tesoro. The threat is gone. Which means..." He paused, and for the first time since I'd met him, he looked uncertain. "Which means you're free to leave if you want to." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What? I told you I'd keep you safe. I have. The deal was your safety in exchange for staying here." His hands dropped from my face, and he leaned back, putting distance between us that felt like miles. "I'm not going to keep you prisoner now that there's no reason to. If you want to go back to your old life, get your own place, go back to bedside nursing, be free of all this, I won't stop you." I stared at him, trying to process what he was saying. He was giving me an out. After everything, after the protection, the obsession, the claiming, he was offering to let me go. "Do you want me to leave?" I asked carefully. "No." The word was immediate, harsh. "I want to keep you here forever. I want to wake up with you in my bed every morning and fall asleep with you in my arms every night. I want to know you're safe because you're where I can protect you. I want..." He stopped, jaw clenched. "But what I want doesn't matter if you're only here because you feel like you have to be." Understanding dawned. "You think I'll leave now that I can?" "I think you should have the choice." He stood, moved to the windows, his back to me. "I've controlled every aspect of your life for 2 months, made decisions for you, kept you here whether you liked it or not. Now you get to decide. Is this what you really want? Or was it just survival?" I stood, crossed to him, and wrapped my arms around him from behind. He stiffened, then relaxed into my touch. "You're an idiot," I said against his back. "Excuse me? If you think I'm only here because I had to be, then you haven't been paying attention." I moved around to face him, and the vulnerability in his eyes nearly broke me. This powerful, dangerous man was afraid. Afraid I'd leave him. "Yes, you're controlling. Yes, you're possessive. Yes, you make decisions that drive me crazy sometimes. Not helping your case," he muttered. "But you also make me feel safe for the first time in my life. You listen when I talk about work and actually implement my suggestions. You paid off my debts without making me feel like I owe you. You gave me purpose again. I reached up, cupping his face the way he so often did mine. And somewhere between the fear and the fighting and the frustration, I fell in love with you. His hands came up to grip my wrists, his eyes searching mine. Emma. I'm not leaving, Dante. Not because I have to stay, because I want to. Because this. I gestured around the study, the estate, the life we'd built together. This is my home now. You're my home. He pulled me against him with bruising force, his face buried in my hair. You mean that? I mean it. I tilted my head back to look at him. But I need you to mean something, too. Anything. I need you to stop thinking of me as something you own. I'm not a possession, Dante. I'm your partner. Which means I get a say in decisions that affect my life. It means I need you to trust me to keep myself safe sometimes. It means... He kissed me, cutting off my words with his mouth. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. I'll try, he said. I can't promise I won't be possessive. I can't promise I won't want to lock you away from anything that might hurt you. But I can promise to listen, to consider your opinion, to treat you like the partner you are instead of just something I need to protect. That's all I'm asking. Then stay. His forehead dropped to mine. Stay with me. Be my partner, my woman, my everything. On one condition. He groaned. Of course there's a condition. I want to go back to nursing. Not full-time, not right away. But I want to work bedside again. Even if it's just one shift a week at one of your hospitals. I held his gaze. I need that, Dante. I need to feel useful in that way again. He was quiet for a long moment, and I could see the war playing out behind his eyes. The urge to protect versus the promise to treat me as a partner. One shift a week, he finally said. At St. Catherine's, where I know the security is good, with 2 guards who stay close but out of sight, and you carry a panic button at all times. Deal. I smiled. See? Compromise. We're getting better at this. Don't get used to it, he muttered, but there was affection in his tone. I'm still going to be impossible about everything else. I wouldn't have it any other way. He kissed me again, slower this time, thorough. When we finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. I love you, he said quietly. I don't think I'm very good at it. I'm too controlling, too possessive. Too perfect, I interrupted. You're perfect for me. Even though I'm a criminal? Even though. I traced the scar above his eyebrow. Your world is dark and dangerous and completely insane, but it's real. You're real. And after spending so long being invisible, being seen by you, being loved by you, is everything. His arms tightened around me. Ti amo, tesoro mio. Sei mia per sempre. I didn't speak Italian, but I understood enough. You're mine forever. And you're mine, I said back. His smile was pure possession and joy. Always. 6 months later, I stood in the new pediatric wing at St. Catherine's, watching as the first patients were admitted. The rooms were bright and cheerful, the equipment state-of-the-art, the family areas comfortable enough that parents could actually rest. It was everything I'd envisioned, and more. Dr. Chen says the staff is already calling it the Hartley Wing, Dante said, coming up behind me and wrapping his arms around my waist. After you. It should be the Salvatore Wing. You paid for it. I wrote checks. You made it real. He pressed a kiss to my neck. You made a lot of things real. I leaned back against him, content. My life had changed in ways I never could have imagined that night in the hospital cafeteria. I lived in an estate. I worked alongside one of the most powerful men in the city. I went to charity galas in designer dresses, and came home to a man who looked at me like I hung the moon. But more than that, I was happy. Truly, deeply happy. Ready to go home? Dante asked. Home. Not his house. Not the estate. Home. Yes, I said, turning in his arms to kiss him. Let's go home. As we walked out of the hospital, his hand possessively on the small of my back, his security detail a subtle presence behind us, I thought about that terrified, exhausted nurse who'd been standing in a cafeteria 2 months ago, invisible to everyone around her. She never could have imagined this life. Never could have dreamed that the dangerous stranger in the expensive suit would become her entire world. But then again, The best things in life were the ones you never saw coming, the ones that found you when you weren't looking, the ones that claimed you completely and refused to let go. I glanced up at Dante, at the strong line of his jaw and the possessive way his hand gripped my waist, and smiled. I'd been claimed by a monster in an Armani suit, and I'd never been more grateful for anything in my life. We drove through the city as the sun set, painting everything in shades of gold and amber. Dante's hand found mine, threading our fingers together with that same possessive grip that had become as familiar as breathing. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How different my life is now. How different I am. Regrets?" "Not a single one." I squeezed his hand. "You promised me safety, purpose. A life where I didn't have to struggle anymore. You kept every promise. And you promised to stay, to let me love you, to be mine." His thumb traced circles on my palm. "You've kept yours too." The Mercedes pulled through the gates of the estate. Our estate now, not just his. Home. "I was thinking," I said as we walked inside, "about what you said that first morning. About how something in you recognized something in me." I remember. You were right. We recognized each other, two people who were broken in different ways, you with your need to control everything, me with my need to be needed. I stopped in the foyer, turning to face him. "We fixed each other. You fixed me," he corrected. "I just kept you safe while you did it." "No." I reached up, pulling his mouth down to mine. We saved each other. The kiss deepened, and he lifted me into his arms, carrying me up the stairs to our bedroom, the room that had become ours over the past months, filled with both our belongings, both our lives intertwined. He laid me on the bed with reverent care, and as he covered my body with his, I thought about how far we'd come. From strangers in a cafeteria to this perfect, possessive, all-consuming love that had transformed both our lives. "Mine," he whispered against my lips. "Yours," I agreed, "always yours." And as he proceeded to show me exactly how thoroughly I belonged to him, I sent up a silent thank you to whatever twist of fate had brought us together. To Marcus for being stupid enough to leave that package in my apartment, to my own exhaustion for making me vulnerable enough to catch Dante's attention, to every choice and chance that had led me to this moment, because this, lying in the arms of a dangerous, possessive man who loved me with terrifying intensity, was exactly where I was meant to be. I'd found my home in the last place I'd expected to look, in the heart of a monster who turned out to be exactly what I needed, and I was never letting go. Neither was he, which was exactly how we both wanted it.
Generated by the relaxive motion of the conductors and fluxes, it is produced by the modial interactions of magnetoreluctance and capacitive directance. The original machine had a base plate of prefabulated amulite surrounded by a malleable logarithmic casing in such a way that the two spurving bearings were in direct line with a pentametric fan. The latter consisted simply of 6 hydrocoptic Marzil vanes, so fitted to the ambifacient lunar vein shaft that side fumbling was effectively prevented. The main winding was of the normal Lotus O delta type, placed in panendermic semi-bolid slots in the stator, every 7th conductor being connected by a non-reversible termic pipe to the differential girdle spring on the up end of the grammeter. 41 monastically placed grouting brushes were arranged to feed into the rotor slipstream a mixture of high 5-value phenhydrobenzamine and a 5% reminative tetrahydrohexamine. Both these liquids have specific pericosities given by P equals 2.4 Cn, where N is the diathesial evolute of retrograde temperature phase disposition, and C is the Cholmondeley's annual grillage coefficient. Initially, N was measured with the aid of a metapolar pilframeter, but up to the present date, nothing has been found to equal the transcendental Hopper datascope. All I got was vein shaft. Okay. Electrical engineers will appreciate the difficulty of nubbing together a regurgitative Purwell and a superanimative Wennel sprocket. Indeed, this proved to be a stumbling block to further development until, in 1943, it was found that the use of anhydrous nagling pins enabled a cryptocasnic boiling shim to be tankered. The early attempt to construct a sufficiently robust spiral decommutator failed largely because of lack of appreciation in the large quasi-pietic stresses in the gremlin studs. The latter were especially designed to hold the roffet bars to the span